Hey, Spexel. I want to know the famous episodes of Ultraseven. Sure thing. We're gonna be covering quite a lot today, so let's get started. The first episode that we're covering is episode 3, Secret of the Lake. I'm not gonna go over the story because it's simply about an alien invasion, but the aliens from this episode sent out one of the most famous kaijus from the show, Eleking. Why is this kaiju so famous even though the story doesn't seem noteworthy? Well, one of the reasons is that it's beautiful. Wait, seriously? Yeah, I've seen many sites refer to Eleking as a well-designed kaiju. But is that really a strong enough reason for it to be the most famous kaiju from the show? As you suspect, there are several other reasons why, and many of them are unrelated to the episode it appeared in. One of them is its popularity in Ultra Fight. What the heck is that? Ultra Fight is a 5-minute show that aired Monday through Friday from September 28, 1970 to September 24, 1971. As I mentioned in our conversation last time, Tsuburaya Production had a financial problem. Ultra Fight was made so that a new show could be made by spending barely any money. So the episodes were excerpts of the fight scenes from Ultraman and Ultraseven. But most of the episodes depicted extremely cheaply made battles between kaijus or against Ultraseven with an actual wrestling commentator, Jiro Yamada, narrating the fight. I've only seen a few episodes, but it's a very bizarre show, and the show surprisingly became popular and had a total of 196 episodes, with 35 of them featuring Eleking. I see, so it appeared quite a few times in a popular show. Yeah, and I have heard that whenever Ultraseven is mentioned in the media or a live stage show is performed at department stores, Eleking apparently has appeared often, leaving an impression that it's the signature kaiju even to people who never watched the series. I agree with these claims, but take it with a grain of salt because it's not like I have hard evidence to back them up. Anyways, I think you get the idea, so let's move on. Next up, we're covering episode 6, Dark Zone, which features the alien Pegassa. This episode is famous for the intense situation in which the Ultra Guard had to destroy a mega metropolis in outer space, Pegassa City, even though the inhabitants were not hostile towards Earth. Why did they have to do such a thing? It's because the city had lost control and was on a collision course with Earth. The aliens sent messages to Earth requesting the planet to be moved out of the way, but unfortunately for them, the humans have no such technology to do so. I see, so the Ultra Guard had to destroy Pegassa City to protect Earth. Exactly. But I want to mention that Ultra Guard tried to help the residents of the city to evacuate, but they didn't respond at all to the team's desperate call. Why didn't they respond? Suga speculated that perhaps the Pegassa didn't expect the Earthlings to have the technology to destroy the city, because they couldn't even change the planet's orbit. This is just my interpretation, but I felt like there was an undertone of criticizing the arms race, that humans are investing too much into creating deadly weapons instead of anything else. Sounds like a bit of a stretch. Maybe, but I think Ultraseven has several episodes that reflect on the Cold War, considering that the tensions between US and the Soviet Union were rising during the 1960s. We'll be covering some of these episodes today, so keep this in mind. Anyways, this episode 6 also has a plot of Dan and Anne unknowingly befriending an injured secret agent from Pegassa City who was on a mission to destroy Earth if the planet's orbit was not changed. So far, this episode sounds really interesting. I should mention that it has several questionable and awkward scenes, which makes it hard for me to simply praise it, but it is definitely an interesting episode. Anyways, let's move on to episode 8, The Marked Town, which features the alien Metron. This is one of my favorite episodes from the show because the story is suspenseful and has many iconic moments. I'm going to hold back on the details because I don't want to spoil the fun, but I will say that the story opens up with several cases in which a person suddenly goes on a rampage and, at times, kills many people. The story is mostly about Dan investigating the cause of this sudden rampage. Oh come on, you know that don't mind spoilers. Just tell me. No can do. But I suppose I can tell you 3 things that made this episode famous. One is the small short-legged dining table called Chabudai. What? In the scene where Metron finally shows himself to Dan, the two sit down across the Chabudai. A strange-looking alien sitting near a common household table made the scene so surreal that it left a very strong impression on the viewers. This is why there are several figures of Metron that include the Chabudai as an accessory. Another thing that made this episode famous is the sunset. The sun was setting when Dan and Metron confronted each other, and the scene after they enlarge and stand over the city is quite beautiful. This scene and many scenes from Return of Ultraman are reasons why the fans associate beautiful scenes in the Ultraman series with the sunset. The last thing that made this episode famous is the ending narration, which goes like this. The alien's idea to use humanity's trust was frightening. But have no fear, this is a tale of the far distant future. What? Why is that, you ask? Because we humans still don't trust each other enough for aliens to prey on us that way. Ouch, that hurts. Yeah, it's a great way to end the episode. In my opinion, this is another episode that possibly reflected on the Cold War because it felt like the ending narration comedically criticized the humans' inability to maintain peace, even after 20 years have passed since the end of World War II. Anyways, let's move on to episodes 14 and 15, The Ultra Guard Goes West. This is the first two-part episodes from the show and features the robot, King Joe. The series of incidents started with the alien Pedon misinterpreting the research rocket fired from Earth as a sign of invasion and declaring retaliation. What ensued was a series of fun spy actions such as Pedon's assassination of researchers, Ultra Guard's effort to identify the alien disguised as a human, and Dan's negotiation with Pedon to stop the invasion. And to top it all off is the fight against the super robot, King Joe. Yeah, sounds like an exciting story. This is the type of storytelling that I miss from the Ultraman series, which illustrates international cooperation to figure out a solution against the threat to humanity. Okay, so is this robot famous because of the story? I would say that it's more known for how powerful it is. Ultraseven rarely struggles fighting in the show, but he got beaten up quite badly by King Joe. It was depicted to be so strong that every time its variant appeared in future Ultraman series, it became customary that they beat up the heroes. Also, one fun fact that might have left a strong impression on the viewers is that King Joe is apparently the world's first combining robot to appear in a live-action visual medium. I wouldn't be surprised if the kids at the time were amazed to see 4 spaceships combining to form a super powerful robot. I mean, I still get excited with it even though I've seen plenty of other combining robots in my life. Anyways, let's move on to episode 26. Super Weapon R1, which features the star BAM, Gyeron. I know you defined BAM in the past, but what does it mean again? BAM stands for bug-eyed monster, but I think it's often used as a fancy alternative for the word monster or creature. I would say that Gyeron's episode depicted the concerns over the arms race the most out of the entire show. You sure that you're not just interpreting it that way? This time, I'm not being delusional because this episode in particular pushes its message very strongly. The story centers around the creation of a new type of weapon, R1. As an experiment, the scientists blew up a planet that they presumed had no inhabitants. However, there was a creature that lived there, and it deformed into a powerful monster because of the radiation caused from the explosion. Okay, so this guy is basically Godzilla. Yeah, pretty much. The biggest difference is that Gyeron can regenerate its body even when it gets blown up into smithereens. Huh, so how did Ultraseven manage to defeat it? He basically cut Gyeron's throat and made it bleed to death, which, for some reason, prevented it from regenerating. Honestly, I wasn't satisfied with how it died, but I gotta admit that its death scene at the flower field, which turned into a radioactive wasteland after the battle, left an impression on me. I get that Gyeron's story is quite tragic, but what about the whole thing regarding the arms race? In this episode, the Ultra Guard members rejoiced over the completion of the R1, stating that such a powerful weapon will surely discourage aliens from invading Earth. However, Dan questioned what if the aliens create a stronger weapon. Furuhashi answers that they will create an even stronger weapon. To that, Dan answers with the famous quote, "That's a sad marathon that you keep running as you cough up blood." Dang, that's heavy. Yeah, I could definitely see how this episode clearly criticizes the arms race. Yeah, maybe a bit on the nose, but it comes from a genuine concern. Well then, let's move on to episode 28, the 700-kilometer run, which features Dinosaur Tank. Dinosaur Tank? Yes, Dinosaur Tank. Combine a dinosaur with a tank, and you get Dinosaur Tank. What the heck is this thing? Dinosaur Tank is perhaps one of the most bizarre kaijus from Ultra 7, and was basically made as a result of Tsuburaya Productions' financial problem. In order to save costs of making the monster suit, someone decided to reuse a miniature of Type 61 tank that was left over from the film by Nikatsu, Gappa, the Trifibian monster, and combine it with a dinosaur. I see, so it was made from desperation. Yeah, and this makeshift kaiju surprisingly became very popular because it was so crude that it was ridiculous. It's a mashup of two things that boys love, dinosaurs and tanks. There's nothing elegant about it. And this thing was strong. It could fire laser beams from its eyes, there are cannon barrels under its belly, it smacked Ultra 7 with its tail numerous times, and ran over his right arm. Okay. I get that Dinosaur Tank is a ridiculous kaiju, but what's the episode about? Episode 28 is about the aliens trying to steal the newly invented explosive, Spiner, and Dinosaur Tank was used at the end of the episode as the last resort to retrieve it. In order to prevent the Spiner from being stolen, the Ultra Guard decided to transfer it by participating in a car rally. That makes no sense. I'm guessing that the scriptwriter included rallying in the story because apparently it became popular in Japan after a certain book was released in 1966. The book described the experiences of the team led by Nissan becoming the class winner of the 14th East African Safari Rally and was popular enough that it was adapted into a movie, Safari 5000, in 1969. So yeah, episode 28 had a strange premise that is fitting for a strange kaiju. Now, I should mention that Dinosaur Tank was not appreciated by Toru Narita, the monster designer who worked on Ultraman on Ultra 7. He was apparently infuriated by being told to design this crude monstrosity, and named it along with Iron Rocks from episode 21 as one of the reasons why he stopped working with Tsuburaya Production. In fact, he parted ways with the company after episode 30 and was replaced by Noriyoshi Ikea starting episode 31. This leads us into the two-part episodes 39 and 40, the 7 Assassination Plan, which featured the alien, Guts. Out of the kaijus designed by Noriyoshi Ikea in Ultra 7, I would say Guts is the most famous because it actually defeated the hero. Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, but I'm personally just okay with these episodes. Part 1 was good because it built up a nice cliffhanger with the defeat of Ultra 7, but Part 2 was disappointing to me because Guts lost so easily to the revived hero. Was there a reason why Ultra 7 managed to defeat Guts in the second fight? There is, but I'm not satisfied with it. Guts managed to defeat Ultra 7 because they analyzed his past battles and set up a battlefield advantageous to them. But after Ultra 7 was revived, Guts panicked in such a cartoony way and were defeated without much of a fight. Well, it makes sense to me that a strategic fighter will lose without a battle plan. I guess so. I just wanted to see the story build up to a revenge match of the hero versus the villain, with the hero prevailing at the end after a tough battle. But I will say the story is decent. Even though the story has several other questionable moments, I like that it put a spotlight on Ultra Guard members struggling to create a material that will revive Ultra 7. And so, these are the 7 most famous kaijus of Ultra 7 that I drew pixel art for. I know this video is getting a bit long, but I want to briefly introduce a few more episodes that are famous among the fans. Episode 37 and 43 are 2 episodes that are known for their story and for not featuring any monster suits because of Tsuburaya Productions' financial problem. Episode 37, The Stolen Ultra Eye, is a tragic tale most known for the fate of Maya, the agent sent from planet Majoran who is abandoned on Earth. Episode 43, Nightmare on Planet Number 4, is a creepy story in which Dan and Soga adrift onto a planet similar to Earth, but is ruled by robots instead of humans. It's a solid science fiction episode that has several trippy scenes. Episode 42, Ambassador of the Nullmalt, is very famous for the story which questions, what if the humans were invaders of Earth? That's a scary question. I really liked how this episode didn't pull any punches in illustrating the egotism of humanity. So yeah, these 3 episodes don't have notable kaijus, but they're definitely worth checking out. Now let me mention the banned episode that you cannot watch unless you search for it online, episode 12, From My Planet with Love. Why was this episode banned? The reason is actually very complicated based on what I've read. But let me briefly explain what the story is first. This episode features the alien Spell, who has a blood disease caused by radiation. In search of alternate blood supply, the aliens were giving out wristwatches that extracted blood from the Earthlings. The episode basically is about the Ultra Guards typing their plan. Blood disease caused by radiation? Let me guess, did this episode receive complaints from leukemia patients? That's the complicated part. When this episode first aired, it apparently didn't receive any complaints. Same with its reruns. It finally became a problem in 1970, not because of the episode itself, but because of a magazine. In the monthly magazine titled Shogaku Ninensei, or English translation being second grader, the November issue came with playing cards as an accessory. The cards had images of kaijus printed on them on the front, and a brief description of it on the back. For Alien Spell, it was written Hibakuseijin, which translates to Radiation Exposed Alien. However, at its time, the word hibaku was closely associated with atomic bomb victims. A middle school girl noticed this card after her younger brother bought the issue and told her father, who happens to work for Japan Confederation of A and H bomb sufferers organizations. The father sent a complaint to the newspaper company, Asahi Shimbun, which reported that atomic bomb victims are being depicted as deformed alien monsters. The news became known around Japan, and Tsuburaya Production eventually announced that episode 12 will be banned forever. Sounds like the situation got out of hand really quickly. There's a huge debate among the Japanese fans on whether this ban was fair or not, because the source of the complaint was the magazine, not the actual episode. I think it is problematic that it's quite easy to negatively interpret the design and the setting of the alien spell, but I think banning it forever is a bit too much. So yeah, those are the episodes that I wanted to cover for today. Sounds like there's a lot of interesting episodes from the show. Yeah, there are several episodes that I personally like from Ultraman and Ultraseven that I wasn't able to mention. Maybe someday I'll talk about them. And as a reminder, you can stream all of the episodes from Ultraman and Ultraseven on Shout Factory's website for free, so check them out if you're interested. Alrighty, Bias Pexel, I'll come again when I'm interested in another show. Take care. You too. See ya!